Hello and welcome to today's YouTube webinar with my solo 401k financial. We're going to let the viewers log in and then get started. It looks like the viewers have logged in. I'm just going to confirm the audio. 1 second. Okay, great. I just confirmed the audio. So welcome again to our weekly webinar on YouTube. We have a special guest today, John Denza from AerisX. Thank you so much for taking the time to join, John. I know we did one before talking about opening up an account at ErisX for a solo 401k. Today's focus is going to be an update from ErisX is regarding the features, hearing good information about cryptocurrency generally, as well as we want to go through how to set up an account for an IRA, specifically an IRA LLC. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But welcome, John.
Thank you for having me, George. Pleasure, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday, yes. So great way to cap off the week here. So we're going to start out with the slides that John brought. So I'll flip through them at your pace, John, and then we'll let you walk us through it.
Yeah, before we, George, we'd love to do it. Before we go through the slides, I just want to give a kind of an introduction of myself to the audience, and then maybe give some background on crypto, just so that the audience understands a little detail about the cryptocurrency industry. So I'm John Denza. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for AerisX. Prior to AerisX, I've been in capital markets for over 20 years, having spent time at several different exchanges, including names that your users have probably heard of before, like NASDAQ, Instinet. I was with CBOE BATS for 11 years, always in a sales capacity, and I've also launched multiple exchanges along the way with those different entities. And then I'd say about 5 years ago, I got the crypto bug. I saw the parallels to what I was doing in traditional finance, and really saw some tremendous promise with the asset class. So saw the challenges from a market structure standpoint, and I felt like I was watching things that I've seen through my career almost in fast forward. So 2.5 years ago, I jumped feet first into ErisX, and it's been an amazing journey so far. So with that being said, want to maybe also give the audience a little color about crypto and some background about Bitcoin. So I always like to use analogies as a way to explain certain situations and examples. So let's start off. People wonder, what is Bitcoin? How do you compare it to gold? Let's say, for an example, both are a store of value, but let's think about it from a practicality standpoint. So let's say one of your users wants to go into a convenience store, let's say a 7-Eleven or a Wawa, or wherever it is in your local community, and they want to go in and, let's say, buy a pack of gum. And you have, let's say, gold, for example. You have a gold coin in your pocket. You go to the counter, you hand it to the person at the counter, and they're going to look at you kind of funny and say, what am I supposed to do with this? Because in practicality, you can't break down a gold coin in any way. It's not divisible in a sense. With crypto, it's different because it goes out multiple decimal places, and it's as simple as actually deducting it from your account. So let's say a real life example could be, you have the app for Starbucks on your phone. You go to buy that latte, you flash the barcode, it deducts the monies from your account for purchasing that drink. Well, you could do the same with Bitcoin. You could actually have a code a key that gets into your wallet and immediately deducts the amount for those goods. So from a practicality standpoint, the ability to use that as a currency and for it to be divisible in real life situations makes it a useful currency in a sense. And then let's take it a step further. People always wonder, what is blockchain? Blockchain, I like to use the example, is probably best considered if you had a Excel spreadsheet and everybody in the world is using that Excel spreadsheet, and when George makes an update, it's immutable. What does that mean? It means that his updates to that Excel spreadsheet are part of history forever. You can't go back and retrace time. That is immutable into the blockchain. It's pretty simple. So all these updates that people are making to the blockchain are seen by the universe, and you can't go back and replay the history and try to change the past. That's it in a very simple explanation. And then lastly, the other piece of the cryptocurrency industry, between Bitcoin being a store of value is a smart contract, and that would be what you've heard of before is the currency Ethereum is built on a smart contract. And what does a smart contract means? You know, I think a really good example is if you think about a vending machine, and if you are, let's say, in a hotel and you want to get a candy bar out of the vending machine, and you see a Kit Kat and it's $1.50, and one of your users puts $1 into the system, tries to hit A3 for that Kit Kat, it doesn't fall down. You didn't give it the proper instructions. Well, what if you go back and you put $1.50 in and then the candy bar falls? It's really simple. It's an if-then statement. So if I put the money into the machine, then this will happen afterwards. It's in that's in its simplest terms. And then to take it a step further to understand a smart contract, think about it in future real world use is, you know, what could happen is you could actually apply it to, let's say, the closing process for a home, where you no longer needed to use the title company, go through the bank, because you've built a peer-to-peer network, and all of these things can be created into a smart contract, and you're basically optimizing and streamlining the process, and you're also eliminating the opportunity for failure. So these banks you actually would normally work with for lenders, what if you could actually work on a peer-to-peer network and be able to set up these contracts and have specific commands in the contract? So that's just a quick overview of the industry from a high level looking down. And then I figured let's dig into ErisX so your audience learns a little bit about the exchange. So you want to go ahead there, George, please?
Yeah, no, those are great, just great analogies. I think it really helps to really understand the concepts. I mean, from our perspective, it's, you know, we've been hearing about cryptocurrency from our clients for years. And so it's really been amazing to watch the industry just mature and expand, and how the broader market really take hold of it as an investment opportunity. And as you noted, you know, it has all these amazing features that can actually be applied to real life, like buying the latte or the candy bar, like you mentioned. So
exactly, it's amazing the opportunities that there are right now with the industry in crypto. So just to kind of dig into ErisX, you can go ahead one more slide for me, George.
Okay, thanks.
So just wanted to give a little bit of history. So about 7-8 years ago, the founders of ErisX and the investors had created an interest rate swap futures product. And when they did that, they went out to the CFTC and they acquired what's called the DCM, which means that we were able to operate a futures exchange. And then what happened was, within the futures industry, when you have the futures exchange and you're executing those futures contracts, you still need to use what's called a DCO to clear those, which is a derivative clearing organization. So it was set up rather inefficiently in the past, where these trades were being done on ErisX, but they were being routed away to the CME to clear them. Fast forward, they licensed the IP to the CME, and they're left holding this futures exchange medallion from the CFTC, which is a challenge in itself to get approved. So they're holding it, and then the original investors recognize the fact that if there's going to be institutional adoption in the space, you need to have regulation, transparency, and compliance. They need to get comfortable with investing in this new asset class. So what happened is, first they started to build out a great cap table. Cap table includes some of the names, and if you could scroll ahead to the other slide, I think that has the cap table participants. Yep, perfect. Thank you, George. So some of these are names your audience has probably heard of, like Virtu, which is a publicly traded proprietary trading company, Susquehanna. Also on that list there is Consensus, which is kind of the foundation that created Ethereum. And then also Digital Currency Group, DCG, on the left-hand side. They're the ones responsible for the GBTC tracking stock that tracks Bitcoin on a regular basis. They're also, I think, one of the largest acquirers of Bitcoin, because they have to support those positions in GBTC with the underlying. Also, the exchange-based CBOE, CME, and NASDAQ made investments, which is in the middle and the bottom. But the piece that I got excited about because of my capital markets background was the fact that firms like Fidelity, TradeStation, and TD Ameritrade got involved and invested in ErisX. In particular, TradeStation and Fidelity are both very active on the platform. So what's happened is we built this great cap table. And then in April 2019, we launched the spot market. And then following that, in July, we obtained our DCO, which is on from the CFTC, which allows us to clear futures trades. And so now we're federally regulated by the CFTC for our DCO and our DCM. Our exchange rule filing is with the CFTC for both our spot and futures markets. And then in December of that year, we launched our own proprietary trading technology. So we do not outsource our technology. And we launched our also our first futures trade at that point for crypto, for physically settled futures. And then over the last 2 years, we've gone out and obtained all the money transmitter licenses in the US, which I'll touch on in a future slide. But we went out and obtained all of them. And we've got about 51 of them right now, excluding Virginia. And then the tail end of last year, our focus was actually filing for our margin application with the CFTC. So
yeah, I see that pending here.
Years for the team.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is that? When you say Fidelity and TradeStation are active on the platform, what does that mean?
That means that their users actually have access to our markets and they're trading on the markets. There's been 2 press releases. Each of them have had a press release announcing that news, so it's public.
Okay. Okay, great. I mean, that's got to be a great, for the average type investor, that's got to be a great stamp of approval.
Absolutely. I think it's, it's important from a brand recognition point that you're going to want to feel comfortable with the exchange you're trading. And when you have the backing of such great companies that are listed on our partner page, it just speaks volumes of the type of firm we are.
And I see that obviously we've got participants here. I would mention, please like this video, please subscribe. I see that people are submitting questions, which is fantastic. So some of these would be better, I think, fielded by you, John. I'll let you decide when you want to answer them, but maybe we can keep going through the slides for now.
Yep. Let's go through the slides and then I'll address the questions. So the coins that we carry right now are Bitcoin, ETH, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and USDC. We actually have part of our product roadmap is to introduce new coins over the tail end of this year. We've got about 10 to 12 that we're planning to release. It's just for the larger audience. It's just a little bit of a challenge when you're launching these coins because one, you need to make sure that you're going to feel comfortable listing that coin, that it's actually not centralized in nature, let's say like an XRP, and then also that it's not just a flash in the pan, quick, drive to use this for a couple weeks and then it dies out. We want the coin to have longevity. Plus, there's also what's called a green list with the New York Department of Financial Services in New York, which only allows you to list certain coins. So there's a bit of a process, and that's why there's a little bit of a lead time. But by the end of the year, we'll definitely be rounding out our coin listings. So we can jump ahead.
I know that we wanted to gear this a little bit for basics as well. So what's the difference between one coin, say Bitcoin and Litecoin? What's the difference between those two?
It's just different protocols. Some people, they're both a store of value. Just Bitcoin is more widely used than Litecoin. Some people have actually even used the analogy of gold versus silver between the two of them. So they're very similar in their nature.
I see. Okay.
And then USDC, I was just going to say USDC that's listed there is what's called a stable coin, which is pegged to the dollar. So what some people might do is, maybe they're waiting for some volatility to die down in a certain coin, and they might decide instead of moving it to dollars, move it to the USDC, which is pegged to the dollar. And then when they feel comfortable, maybe migrating over into a coin position from there.
I see. So pegged to the dollar means the value is supposed to correspond to the US dollar.
Yep. 1 USDC is equal to 1 US dollar, roughly. Depends on how it fluctuates, though.
So the idea would be, right, that if you think there's volatility, say in a certain cryptocurrency, but not in the US dollar, you can move your money and it's not going to go up or down as much as it might if you had left it in that cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
Okay. Thanks for helping us think through that.
No problem.
So trading interfaces.
All right, so the first slide here that George pulled up is our member portal, which your users would have access to. This is basically the login window for your users. So on this screen, you could see that on the left-hand side, which is the little window that's popped up there in the center of the page, is a quick trade widget. What that means is basically that a user can go into the platform instead of using our full-blown trading user interface, which I'll show in a second. They can use the quick trade widget. And let's say, for example, here, if they wanted to buy $5,000 worth of Bitcoin or whatever dollar value that they choose, they could put in the dollar value there. They would hit submit, and then a window would pop up that would explain how much Bitcoin they would purchase at that dollar value. And then they would have to hit submit again, and then it would be placed into their account. And those windows that are in the center there at the top basically show your positions, your US dollar position, your coin positions along the banner. Just scroll down a little bit down from there, or if you want to increase it. There we go. Yep, you can slightly see it there. One more. Perfect. There's the US dollar position, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash. They'll all have these consolidated view here. Also, if you wanted to pull down reports or daily statements, you would be able to do it off of this interface as well. And then also to note, right there at the top right-hand corner up there, where it says trade, and I'll explain in a second, but once you're in the member user interface here, the portal, you could click on trade, and that'll take you to the full-blown trading UI that we have.
Excellent.
You can jump ahead, George.
Sure. The mobile?
All right, just wanted to give a view of the same portal that I was explaining before. This is just our mobile version of it. We haven't created an API, but we've perfectly sized it to fit most phones. So the Droid and the Apple phone, you could easily access the portal and it'll be sized correctly.
Excellent. Yep. Everyone's going to go nowadays. Don't want to miss an opportunity.
Yep. So this is the trading UI that I was talking about.
Okay.
And if you could expand that a little bit, George.
Of course.
I think you went back. Did it expand or did it get smaller? I think it went smaller.
Okay, sure. Oh, there we go. A little bit better.
Perfect. This is much better. Yeah. So just want to explain a little bit to your users what they're seeing here. So in the left-hand corner there is where your order entry would be. So you'd be able to place orders in there with different limit prices and so forth. Also, if you clicked on an offer or a bid, it would auto-populate that section as well too. So you could quickly, instead of having to manually enter in all the data. Underneath there is the different coins that you'd have in positions, just as an aggregate. The column just off to the right of that is our order book, which is the buys and sells that are resting on the book. In the middle of the page is our charting. And then just off of that, to the right of that, is our time and sales window, which shows all the order executions in real time as they're streaming across. And then at the bottom of the page is basically a working orders and executed orders blotter too. And you could toggle on the different columns to be able to see the specific data that you're looking for.
I see.
All right, jump ahead. Here's just another example of what I was talking about, the mobile version of the UI. So you'd be able to see what it would look like on your phone. At the bottom, which is in very small text there, you can see those are the different, each of those modules there have different windows that you could look at. Keep scrolling down there, George. Perfect. So the first window where you were before is the trade ticket. You could see the order book if you wanted to. If you clicked on the link at the bottom of the page that it says order book, you can see the trade history, charts, orders in each of those, and you'll be able to toggle between those screens off of your phone.
I see it down here.
Yep, exactly.
Got it. Okay, nice. Regulatory overview, which you touched on a bit, but I know that's important.
Yeah, we could kind of quickly go through this. I just wanted to highlight the fact that, we're different than the other exchanges because we're not only regulated on the state level, but on the federal level. Our exchange rule set, as I said before, is filed with the CFTC for spot and futures. We also have MSBs in 51 states, which is on the next screen after this one.
There it is. Still waiting on Virginia.
Those are all the states that we have coverage in. Virginia is pending. We should hopefully hear from them very soon, but we've got 51 of the MSBs in the U.S. in different territories right now.
Right. Okay.
And if you jump ahead, here's just some different links that people could use to be able to access information about ErisX.
Excellent.
So I know that some of your users had some questions. Let's see here. David was asking, do you have cold storage available for Bitcoin and the cost? As of right now, David, we do have cold storage. We have our own custody platform that we offer, so we can custody coin. And right now, as of now, for IRA participants, we do not charge for custody. The insurance of accounts. Yes, we do have insurance for our accounts in case there is a technology problem or a hack. And then also the custody provider that we use also has a level of insurance on top of that too. Well, David, that's a good question. Since we are regulated by the federal and state levels, we're constantly being audited on both levels. We also recently executed our SOC 2 test, which is extremely difficult to obtain, which gives an extra level of security that we actually went through these different procedures to protect our clients. So I do not, knock on wood, see ourselves going bankrupt, even though there have been some horrible stories in the past. And I think that something to highlight when you bring up a question like that is when you're comparing a company that's regulated in the US to one that's outside of the US, it's a completely different set of regulatory requirements. So it's much stricter here in the US and versus what you see in some of the other countries. So you hear these horrible stories like what happened in Canada, or I think there's even another one in India. Well, unfortunately, those regulatory bodies aren't handling or supporting the regulation the way they should. So in the US, it's much stricter. And that's why I think that institutions feel more comfortable getting into the space.
Right, like the big, like the TVs and the Fidelities. And I know that you, and on the private keys aspect of David's question, isn't there an update from ErisX on that point potentially?
Great point, George. So when it comes to the private keys, historically with direct members setting up self-directed participants, setting up IRA accounts, solo 401ks, and LLCs, we did not allow the withdrawal and deposit of coin. We kept it all in a closed loop on ErisX, but we actually have just gotten approval from legal to allow solo 401ks and LLCs to be able to withdraw and take the private keys and move it to their own private wallet or move it to another exchange if they wanted to. But that is coming. The language has actually been drafted by our general counsel to be included in the exchange member portal. And right now, it's just a matter of me getting the functionality, or I should say the language, into the next release cycle. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, I'll have it in the product release cycle. We'll test it. And then once it's tested, people can actually, if they feel more comfortable and they want to put it in their private wallet, they'll be able to withdraw it, the coin.
Great.
And then just another question about insurance I touched on earlier. I just want to highlight again that ErisX has their own insurance, and then our custody provider also has their own insurance as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions, everyone. Let's flip over to the next set of slides. So here we want to dig into the details. We're going to take over from we're going to switch over to the mechanics of just opening up an account specifically for an IRA LLC. So, and we've got another good question here. Looks like it's about funding. Let's go through some of these slides and then we'll let some of these questions stack up and then we'll go through them. So, you know, as far as the basics, as always, cryptocurrency from an IRS perspective, and all these slides here, we'll post them on our community site so you can access them there. Cryptocurrency is considered to be property by the IRS. So that can make things complex if you are investing outside of a retirement account. So one of the advantages of doing it inside of a retirement account is that the gains are growing tax deferred. The exceptions would be if you were using margin to buy the account potentially, as well as if you were investing in mining cryptocurrency, which is obviously outside the scope of an ErisX account. Now we want to talk about the mechanics of investing a self-directed IRA LLC in cryptocurrency. One thing that we want to note right off the bat is that the account is opened up in the name of the LLC, not the IRA. And so we'll go through that. The ErisX's application but it's just important to keep that in mind. So the high-level steps would be opening up a self-directed IRA, funding the IRA. So you do that by making contributions or transferring money from an existing retirement account, setting up an LLC. So this would be a brand new LLC. You would open up a bank account in the name of the LLC, fund the LLC from your IRA. So the money would go from the IRA over to that LLC bank account, and then from the LLC bank account over to the ErisX account in the name of your LLC, so that you can buy cryptocurrency. So just to dig a little deeper, you do need to have an IRA at a custodian that's going to allow you to invest in a brand new LLC, such as Forge Trust. For example, it's not going to be a IRA that's set up at Vanguard or Fidelity. It's got to be one that allows you to invest in an LLC. Then you fund it. You can make contributions just based on the contribution rules, or you can transfer money over or roll money over from an existing IRA or a former employer plan. Step 3, you need to have an LLC and work with a company like us, My Solo 401k, that specializes in helping people set up LLCs for investing their retirement money in alternative investments. Once the LLC is set up by the Secretary of State, an EIN will be obtained, so you can open up a bank account in the name of that LLC, then fund that LLC bank account. So the funds are then wired from the IRA account at the special custodian that allows you to invest in the LLC. Then once the money clears into that LLC bank account, you would then fund the account at ErisX to purchase the crypto. Just a couple tidbits. You want to be certain to use the EIN for the LLC. You open up the account in the name of the LLC, whether we're talking about at ErisX or we're talking about the bank account, and you don't want to combine it with personal funds. So if you want to make a contribution to your IRA, which obviously you would do with non-retirement money, you're not contributing to the LLC, you're contributing at the IRA level, at the custodian level, and then you can move it from there over to the LLC account. As far as the mechanics of getting started at ErisX, they do have a sign-up link on their website, but you don't want to use that. You want to send an email to onboarding@erisx.com and include your name, or if you have multiple managers. So for example, if it's a husband and wife that are both investing their IRA in a single LLC, such that they're both the managers of the LLC, each person's name would be listed, the name of the LLC that is owned by the IRA or IRA accounts, and then ErisX will send the applications and agreements so that you can get set up. So what we've got with the next set of screens is the applications, etc. So before we dive into some of the detail, let's see if we can knock out this question. So if I want to fund my solo 401k Roth IRA, so I'm assuming we're talking about a Roth IRA, not a 401k, can I transfer money from business checking account directly? So maybe clarify that you're first talking about an IRA as opposed to a Roth solo 401k, but I'm going to answer assuming that you're talking about a Roth IRA. So if you're talking about funding it from a business checking account, then that means you're not rolling money over from an existing retirement account. You're making a contribution from with non-retirement money. So that means that you got to make sure that you're eligible to make a contribution. You do it within the limits. Now, typically you would make a contribution from your personal account, not your business account. So your accountant may not be happy that you're making Roth IRA contributions from your business account, but technically you could do that from a Roth IRA contribution perspective, subject to what I just said. But like I said, the money would go into the account at the IRA custodian, not into the LLC account. If you make IRA contributions, you don't do it into the LLC that's owned by your IRA. You make the contribution into the IRA account itself. And then you could transfer it over and invest it into the LLC that's owned by your Roth IRA. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions, or if you were talking about a different scenario. But otherwise, we'll keep going through the slides that have the application.
Yeah, just to add to that, George, just for your audience to know that once it's in that custodial account, they can actually use ACH or wire to move the funds into ErisX.
Great. Yes. Yeah. So it sounds like ErisX accepts either ACH or wire to fund the account. But keep in mind, though, that typically the way the money is going to come through, it's not going to come from the custodian. It's going to first go into the LLC bank account, and then from the bank account
Yes.
over to the bank account where the client has checkbook control over the money. So they may have the IRA LLC to invest some of it in cryptocurrency at ErisX, and some of it they want to invest in real estate or gold coins or whatever the case may be, which they would do through that LLC bank account, and then fund their LLC account at ErisX from that same bank account. So assuming you can ACH money or wire money out of your LLC bank account, the great news is that ErisX will accept either ACH or wire, which is John's good point. So thanks for clarifying. So as far as the application here, so it's important to understand the roles, just to be specific as we go through this application. So at the end of the day, you will have an LLC which is owned by your IRA. So the IRA is the member or the owner of the LLC, and then you are the manager of that LLC. So as opposed to the member. So being the manager gives you control over what's going on in that LLC, gives you the checkbook control, investment control, etc. So when you're completing this application, you're going to sign it and complete it as the manager in some places, and then also as the owner of the IRA, if it's your IRA. And so there might be different complex situations. So we prepared these slides to contemplate that. So for example, you might have a simple scenario where you just have one IRA that's invested in one LLC and you are the sole manager. Or you might have a slightly more complex situation where you have multiple IRAs invested in one LLC where you're the sole manager. Or there could be multiple people that have multiple IRAs. It's a husband and wife. We each have, say, Roth IRAs, one LLC. They're both the managers of that LLC, but there's really two members because each of their IRAs is a member. So the way these slides were prepared were to have you submit in duplicate if you have multiple people, like multiple managers or multiple owners of IRAs, etc., to make sure that ErisX gets all the information they need to open the account. So let's dive in. So first off, as far as the manager, that's going to be you. You enter your information. A lot of it is very straightforward: name, address, email, date of birth, etc. Next section, it asks about the legal name of the single member of the IRA LLC. So this would be the name of the IRA. So for example, that might be Forge Trust Co., CFBO, Jane Smith, Roth IRA. As part of the establishment process, you will be receiving an operating agreement from us that will list the name of the IRA account. So you could look to that operating agreement to get the name. The application is next asking about the legal name of the LLC. So here you would enter the name of the LLC that is owned by your IRA, whatever it might be. Then contact information for that LLC, address, email, phone number. And as we've noted here, provide in duplicate if you have more than one manager or more than one IRA. If you have a mailing address or alternative email address, you can provide it on the next part of the application. The application then asks about where the LLC was organized under the laws of, and then you have to enter the state where the IRA LLC was formed. Typically, that's going to be the state where you live. Check the box in front of IRA Limited Liability Company. Date of establishment, that would be the date that the IRA LLC was formed. So you can look at the articles of organization that were issued by the state. Sometimes they'll have a formation date stamped on there, or they typically will. Or you can look it up online, and it'll oftentimes have the date listed in the Secretary of State's database. The EIN number of the IRA LLC. So that would be obtained as part of our establishment process for the LLC so that you could open up that bank account in the name of the LLC. Legal entity identifier. This would be something like LLC or L.C. However it's listed on the articles. Enter your contact information. So telephone number, email address. Again, provide duplicate if you've got more than one manager involved, like in the husband-wife scenario. Provide additional contact information on the next page. Then there's some compliance questions, which are pretty straightforward. And you want to go ahead and complete those, of course, to the best of your ability as applicable. And continue to do so. That goes down to compliance question 8. Again, you want to complete this more than once if you've got more than one manager. Number 9, you're going to enter the information about the account that's going to be used to fund the ErisX account with fiat currency. Fiat currency meaning US dollars. So this would be the bank account for the LLC that is owned by your IRA. Number 10, you're going to answer yes. That would be the applicable answer there. And then we get down to the part where you sign. So there's multiple signatures here. So even if it's the simple scenario where it's one person's IRA that owns one LLC and there's one manager, you sign twice. Once as the manager of the LLC, once as the owner. And then if you have multiple managers or multiple IRA owners, then this would be, you'd want to submit this in duplicate so that you can get everybody's signature provided. Okay, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Otherwise, we're going to keep going through the rest of the slides. So there's a few agreements that ErisX provides. So we've provided some slides here to help complete those agreements. So the first one is the member master agreement. So the first blank field there, you would enter the name of the LLC that is owned by your IRA, enter limited liability company for the type of entity, and for where the LLC is organized under the laws of, you would enter the state where the LLC was formed. Again, typically where you live. There's an opportunity to sign, again, signing twice, even if it's just you. Then you've got the ErisX Digital Asset Clearing Participant Addendum. So here in the first field, you would enter the name, your name, as the owner of the IRA, and provide in duplicate if there's more than one IRA owner. Again, signing twice, signing and dating twice for that addendum. There's another addendum, the ErisX Digital Asset Trading Participant Addendum. Here again, you're going to enter your name as the owner of the IRA. Again, sign the same pattern. And then finally, there's a place where you need to initial and date. And again, do that in duplicate if you have more than one person that needs to sign. So in addition to completing the application and signing those agreements, additional documentation is needed in order to open the account at ErisX. And this is similar with every cryptocurrency exchange, I would say. So it's not something that ErisX does is asking for more information that you have to provide somewhere else. So just to benchmark that to a degree. So you would want to turn in a copy of your state-approved LLC formation document. So this would be your articles of organization. Sometimes I refer to it as a certificate of formation, showing the entity name, the operating agreement, which is part of the packet that we provide so that you can fund the LLC bank account from the IRA custodian account, a copy of the IRS tax identification number. So this is the EIN for your LLC, copy of your driver's license for the account owner, and then a W-9. And so we've got a page here that talks about how to complete a W-9. So you would list in box 1 the name of the IRA LLC, NA for box 2, check the first box under section 3, list the address of the IRA LLC in section 5. Then you want to go down and enter the EIN number for the IRA LLC in the second part. So you're not listing, for example, your social security number. Okay, so that takes us through those slides. So now let's talk about processing times, which is always a hot button issue. Is this still pretty much where ErisX is at in terms of processing times, John?
I'm going to say my head of operations is going to ask me to say it's 10 business days, but we've historically been doing them in probably 2 to 3 business days. Just want to give us a buffer in case there's significant amount of accounts coming in, but we're really processing these as fast as they come in. And like I said, it's usually probably around more like 2 to 3 business days, but to be safe, the maximum is up to 10 business days.
Yeah, that's great. That's I know that compared to some of the other exchanges, that's so much faster, where it can take weeks and weeks and weeks to open an account. And of course, the account can be funded with US dollars, so fiat currency. You don't want to fund it from your personal account per those IRA LLC funding rules we talked about with the good question. And we've got
one other thing, George, just to add about the onboarding on there too, which is unique, is our onboarding client service team is available Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. So they're constantly engaged and working with participants to help them with the paperwork. And then also we have a market ops team, operations team, where you can actually get them on the phone and call them, and they're available 24/7 because, as everybody knows, crypto doesn't sleep. So there's always staff at the trade desk.
Yeah, that's great. That's a huge, I'm sure, for the client, for the customer. Okay, so thank you so much for the good question. I have a Fidelity rollover IRA and Roth IRA. Is a Roth IRA the same as the self-directed IRA and can be used as you've described to open an LLC to use for investing in crypto and real estate purchases? So yes, you can definitely transfer the money from the Roth IRA and invest in crypto via ErisX, or whether we're talking about real estate, whatever you're looking to do. So I'm pulling up this slide because I think it'll be helpful to answer this question. So when you fund the IRA, and let me take it over here actually, really the money can come from any existing IRA that you have. So of course, the Roth IRA that you have at Fidelity is not going to allow you to invest in cryptocurrency or real estate, but they're not going to stop you from rolling it over to a truly self-directed Roth IRA that will allow you to invest in an LLC, and then from there open up an account at ErisX in the name of the LLC, so you can buy cryptocurrency, and the other money that's not invested in crypto, you could invest it in real estate via that same LLC with checkbook control, again, where you are the manager of the LLC and the member is your Roth IRA. So thank you so much for that good question. So I don't see if you have any more questions, John. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join and share all your expertise and good analogies and background. We really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, George. Always a pleasure to be a participant on your webinars.
Okay, fantastic. Well, take care. Have a great weekend, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Have a great weekend, all.
Okay, take care.